Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Monday, September 18th. We're going to take a look at Groupon today. So Groupon has been on my radar the last few weeks. I just remembered today to come in and take a look and thought we should do a video on this. So Groupon has had a series of positive catalysts lately, some sort of pushes from news articles that have come in, and have caused this really incredible run from high 2s up to high 13s. And we're sort of like waffling around in this range for now, kind of batting around from, say, high 10s or 11 up to that 13 level and sort of getting into an interesting sort of situation. So I thought we'd come take a look, set some trend lines, set some levels. As I was looking at it today, I had just thrown this trend line in here. So this is the one that I would say originated about mid-May at that low of 289, and then it's held up really well since then. This is a fairly conservative representation of the uptrend, so leaving room for some sort of slippage below, but quick recovery, right? Like this one was sort of the one that could have really fooled you. Steep decline right into the level, seemed like it was going to bounce, and then a big push downward. And then the push upward seemed to catch resistance there, but the next day it powered through. So if you were patient enough to let it play out over a few days, you would have gotten right back into the swing. And you do see volume-wise, all of these large volume candles predominantly green. There are some relatively big red ones as well, but nothing like these monsters that you see in here. So that's something else that I'm kind of interested in keeping an eye on. Now you see a gap here as well that was left on August 24th. That gap has been filled, but aside from the trend line, let's go ahead and put in some support and resistance levels. Luckily, now that we're in the 13-ish range, we scroll left a little bit, we have some pretty recent price action where it went through this range previously, down here into the 9s and whatnot, and all the way up here into the 14s, and then all the way back to the 10s, and then up to the 12s. So let's glean from that what we can, and then we'll see sort of how it meshes with what we have on the charts today. So I'm going to grab all these supports levels here, sort of a resistance level there. Some of these might be a little bit janky, and if they aren't perfectly in line with what we see in the recent price action, we can rejigger them a little bit when we scroll back right. All right, so those are a couple of levels below. Put this one. Yes, it's like not a ton of action, but let's see. 12A3, that's also below. We got here. Okay, I would take this one. We have some over here that we can draw from also. So 1318 is pretty close in. That's a decent one. 1341. Sorry, I keep tapping the microphone with my hand incidentally, in case you hear bumps and thumps. That one's not bad. 1428. Let's grab a couple more to the upside in case it continues to push. Okay. And maybe one more if we can get closer to the 15-ish level. Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, so some additional stuff might start to develop when we get through these ranges in this push, or it may pull back toward this uptrend, which if it does and it dips below this 1171, I'd be happy to come back in and take a look if folks are interested. If not, that's fine too. Just from the recent price action, I'm going to toss this puppy on here. 1130, see flip there, support grab there, resistance to support here. So 1130 would be that level to my mind. Now if we zoom in to the 10-minute and see sort of how this looks intraday, you see it coming in on this 1171 today, came up, was catching resistance a little shy of that 1229, but then confirmed support over it right here, and then that gave it a nice, pretty quick push right to that 1283-ish range, resistance to support, and then it pinned itself directly between that and the 1318 with some pretty big candles both directions here. Reconfirmed support here, but then reconfirmed resistance there, and then sort of just continued to volley itself in between for the remainder of the day. So I'm happy with those for the moment. And we'll call that sort of our levels for the time being on the Weeble chart. Now on the Thinkorswim study, just keep in mind we put these levels in on the daily, and then we just zoomed into the 10-minute. This is on the 1 hour. So a slightly different view, but it allows us to get a good view of the channel, TTM squeeze indicator, and let's kind of talk through those. So if we just look back here a couple of days, you saw this push off the mid-range, pushed right out of the channel. Now what we look for when something pushes out of the channel is if it comes down and doesn't need to come all the way to the mid-range, that bright blue line in the center of the channel, then it has some pretty solid strength. And you see here it was catching resistance right in the cloud, and that allowed it to push quite a bit higher into the next day. And then following that, then we got the pullback. So then immediately we got the push through the mid-range and just sort of stayed under it the entire day, even testing the lower bound of the channel toward the end of that day. And then we get a retracement once again to the mid-range, but a shrug off back down to the lower bound. It took the mid-range here as support, came down, confirmed the cloud as support. So again, pretty strong motion, nice big push to the upper bound, fell through, lost the mid-range, and then today re-push up through the mid-range, and then cloud support the whole way through, even some top of channel, upper bound of channel support here, coming back into the channel later on in the day today. And you see this sort of like wave, came through a wave of bullish momentum that fully died down, and then a re-uptick that appears to still be ticking up into close today. So we'll see if that continues the ride, but sort of unconventional sort of motion here. It's a little bit spotty, kind of all over the place. I think it's just making big moves on maybe not a ton of volume, and so that's making these moves look a little bit awkward, if you will, where you have this just sort of like it's at the top, the upper bound of the channel, and then it just comes through and immediately loses the mid-range, and then just sort of trickles downward, and then just this burst through sort of seemingly out of nowhere, right? It's not like a nice steady climb through and support, and then a reconfirmation of support and then a push. It's a little bit all over the place. We're just kind of flying through the mid-range, I guess is maybe a better way to put it. So there's that. Nothing on the TTM squeeze yet showing that it's triggering. Last time it triggered was back here. See these red dots, and then when it fired, it set off, I guess, a pretty good move from about, what was this, mid-11s, and then the firing there took it all the way up to, above mid-12s. So decent percentage move, nothing sort of like earth-shattering, but it still is working through that firing motion for the time being. So we'll see sort of what continues to take shape. You do see in the hour here this 180 to 200 EMA cloud providing support all along as well. So if it does dip down, that's currently situated here just above the mid-11s. So if it does need additional support there, that's what I would look for from that. But for the time being, yeah, if it's riding this green cloud as support, that could indicate additional bullish momentum, additional support coming. But like I said, you see it here, and then it just falls right through. So it can also just very quickly change. So that's why I say this one's a little bit janky. Like typically something like this, riding the cloud as support, you would expect a continuation at least in the next day, and maybe it flattens out a little bit, or maybe it draws in and starts testing the mid-range a little bit. But no, this one just goes from cloud support to straight fall through the mid-range, and then it's just underneath it. So it's a little bit awkward in that way. If you've seen other videos with other Thinkorswim studies and how those act, it would probably make more sense. All right, folks, I hope your trading week got off to a good start today. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.